Hello everyone, you're watching News Epicenter with me, Maria Shakil. There is no end to the showdown over the BBC documentary on the 2002 Gujarat riots. After days of protests on campuses across the country, which have even spread to the United Kingdom, the opposition continues the offensive against the centre over its decision to ban the film. The centre has made it clear that the film is malicious propaganda and a threat to law and order, which presents a skewed view of the 2002 Gujarat riots and the subsequent investigation which exonerated Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who was then the Chief Minister of Gujarat. In fact, the findings of the Supreme Court, which highlighted a concerted conspiracy against the then Chief Minister, Mr. Modi, has not been elaborated in this documentary, and that is why it is being seen as a documentary which is based on falsehood. Now BJP MP and senior advocate Mahesh Jethmalani has dropped a bomb, accusing the BBC of being funded by the Chinese firm Huawei in a cash for propaganda deal. He cites a Spectator article which claims that the BBC received money from Huawei to fund overseas journalism and has actively promoted the telecom giant on its websites, even though in 2020 Huawei was barred by the UK government from the 5G network over security concerns. Now the opposition has hit out at the BJP, accusing it of peddling lies to justify the ban on film, which comes up in the top court on the 6th of February. The big question that emerges is this pure politicking or the revelation of a concerted anti-India plot? Joining us first on the show is the man who has set the cat among the pigeons, quite literally. Mahesh Jethmalani is joining me live, Member of Parliament. Mr. Jethmalani, really appreciate your time, sir. You have made this charge based on this Spectator article, which claims that BBC is taking money from Huawei to fund overseas journalism. Is it a stretch to say that Chinese propaganda has percolated into the BBC's editorial agenda?
Absolutely. I mean, this is only India specific, but there are other countries as well who've got the brunt of Chinese enabled BBC propaganda. I mean, it can only be for money. I mean, they're being funded by Huawei, heavily funded by Huawei. There are objections within the UK, as you've seen from the Spectator article. There is disgruntlement within the organization. On the one hand, they write articles about, the persecution by the Chinese state of the Uyghurs, right? And on the other hand, they're taking money from the very oppressors of those Uyghurs. It seems that they will do anything for money.
Mr. Jethmalani, BBC is a public broadcaster, and the UK government barred Huawei from UK's 5G network over security concerns. Don't you hold the UK government under Mr. Sunak responsible for this, given the claims from the Spectator article of Huawei buying major ad space on the BBC?
Well, I can't blame PM Sunak. We can't be that, person specific, because this has been going on for a very long time. This funding by Huawei has been, look, there is so much more material, Maria, I can tell you. Even the source content, the source for which the BBC documentary is, has relied upon. There is, even those sources are very pro-China and tainted, right? I mean, this requires putting together a whole puzzle and lots of pieces, right? Now, first of all, as far as Prime Minister Sunak is concerned, he has rejected the BJP report on the floor of the House, right? This BBC documentary was the outcome of an inquiry report of 2002. That itself makes it suspect. You see, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence which adds to BJP's malafides. A 2002 inquiry report taken off the shelf, dusted, and then suddenly proclaimed in 2002 and 2023, right? Suddenly pronounced in 2023. Then it is done in the face of the fact that since the inquiry report, there has been a searching inquiry into the Gujarat riots and the Prime Minister's role. And every inquiry, every court proceeding has resulted in a clean chit to the Prime Minister, right? Now they bring it out suddenly in 2023 and relying mainly on 2022 material. And Jack Straw, who was the spirit behind the then Foreign Secretary in 2002, there's a lot to be said about him. And at an appropriate time, we will bring it out in the public domain.
Okay, since you are saying that there are, wheels within wheels here, Mr. Jethmalani, you're talking in the context of Jack Straw. And also what we know about Richard Sharp, the chairman of the BBC, who is under the scanner because of his association with the former Prime Minister. Do you think there is much more than what meets the eye? The fact is that the credibility of the BBC is now under the scanner.
The credibility of the BBC is under the scanner, but Jack Straw is just an ally of the BBC. And let me tell you, Jack Straw has been on more than one. I mean, he was the man, first of all, who was roundly, condemned in the UK for giving that false weapons of mass destruction report, which enabled the UK to go into Iraq. But there is a lot more about his linkages with China. Right? And that at an appropriate time, I will bring out. Okay.
Since you're saying that you have several, perhaps a pitara with you of information that is there against the BBC. Mr. Jethmalani, the Russian Foreign Ministry has also targeted the BBC over the documentary, calling it information warfare. Do you see it now as a broadcaster which has been perhaps hijacked by vested interests? Is it time for all nations to see the BBC in the context of what we are seeing now unfold?
Well, look at the history of anti-India propaganda by this broadcaster. It has a history of patent falsehoods. It has apologized in 2021, right, for putting out an Indian flag, truncated Indian flag minus Kashmir. So look at its conduct, and it's unrepentant, right? Some two-bit journalists come here and they think that they'll use the reputation of the BBC and taint a twice elected Prime Minister who continues to be popular, right? It's a hit job. It's a complete hatchet job. It's nothing more than that. There is no credible evidence. They've not even dealt with the court records. If I tell you what the court records have said about the Gujarat riots, you'll be stunned. I'm sure a lot of Indian journalists have not even read the Sessions Court judgment, which dealt with the train burning incident, which was the trigger for the whole thing. The Kar Sevaks who were burnt in the train burning incident, that was the trigger. Why that happened has been documented in the Sessions Court trial judge judgment. Please have a look at it.
Okay. I have gone through certainly the Supreme Court judgment on this entire conspiracy. Mr. Jethmalani, you have even taken a dig at Congress leader Jairam Ramesh, calling him Comrade Jairam. Is your charge that the Congress party has also been compromised by Chinese propaganda?
I've always said that. I mean, listen to me very clearly, Maria. If the Congress has nothing to hide on China, they have a close association, there's no doubt about it. There is an MOU of 2008 which is in the public domain, the signing of which is in the public domain, right? Why don't they come out till today, right? They have not come out with that MOU of 2008. Why? Is it a secret document? It's not. And I don't know why the government is not going after that MOU.
Okay, what is this Huawei connection that you're talking about? That is there with the Congress party?
The Huawei connection, I mean, it's in the public domain already. The Huawei connection was Jairam Ramesh, who now is the controlling mind behind the Congress party. You've seen Rahul Gandhi's most recent video on social media, where he's asked a question regarding the scrapping of laws in Jammu and Kashmir, and he turns around and he draws a blank, and then he asks Jairam Ramesh, what is our stand on this? So the mastermind is Jairam Ramesh, and Jairam Ramesh once upon a time was lobbying for Huawei interests in India, expansion of Huawei's telecom interests in India. He was pulled up by the then Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh, for ignoring security interests. He rode roughshod over the objections of the then Home Ministry, right, when he advocated expansion of Huawei's activities in India. For doing that, the Prime Minister called him and he was hauled up.
My last question to you, Mr. Jethmalani. The ban on the documentary has been challenged in the Supreme Court. We know what the Supreme Court has said in the context of role of Mr. Modi, who was then the Chief Minister of Gujarat. Perhaps there was a larger conspiracy against him. And we have seen how he has been vilified for years now. Do you think the banning in particular, which has been challenged by some citizens who also have political linkages, will it really stand the legal test?
I don't know. I can't second guess the Supreme Court, and that would be totally improper for me to do so, right? The matter is in court, right? There's overwhelming material, right, to justify the ban. And if the ban is upheld in the Supreme Court, I would propose a second ban, that BBC itself be banned in India.
So you are making a strong statement there. You're of the opinion that BBC perhaps should be banned in India. Always a pleasure to speak to you. Mahesh Jethmalani, really appreciate your time, sir. Let me